Hello everyone, and welcome back to Whispers of Turkish Stars. It's so good to have you here. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for all the freshest whispers drifting through the Turkish entertainment world, because tonight's story has shaken the industry from quiet set trailers to noisy late-night studio corridors. A private moment, a tender confession, and a name spoken when defenses were down have reignited a fire many thought had turned to ash. The headline isn't some stunt or rumor recycled by a bored timeline, it was a leak about something deeply personal, and it's taken on a life of its own. After a delicate surgery in Istanbul, sources say Alina was asked to see only one person. Not her family, not a friend, not a doctor. She wanted Alp Navras. The revelation hit like a tremor. For months, whispers had lingered at the edges of their public images. Distance, tension, shifting schedules, and a carefully choreographed silence they both try to maintain. But the second the leak made its way to the press, it cut straight through the static. Alina had been quietly dealing with persistent pain, the kind that steals focus in the middle of a line read or grips after a long day on set. Insiders say she refused to let it derail her projects, refused to be the cause of worry. She kept it so close that even some colleagues had no idea. By the time the operation date arrived, only a tiny circle knew: her mother, her assistant, and a small handful of lifelong friends who understand the meaning of discretion. The clinic was exclusive and discreet, tucked away from the noise of the city. No logos on the curb, no reporters in sight, just frosted glass, soft lighting, and the steady hum chorus of machines that watch and measure without judgment. Her team moved carefully, shielding her from prying eyes. She went under with the kind of grace you only find after choosing calm again and again, even when it would be easier to tremble. And then time passed in the way it does under anesthesia, an instant and a lifetime. When Alina came back to herself, dim lights washing the room and quiet and monitors singing their soft lullaby, witnesses say her first conscious thought fell into one syllable. Alp. Not a speech, not a planned statement. A whisper. Barely there and piercing, because there was no performance in it at all. Those who were present described the moment like a film scene that didn't need a director. Her mother, who had kept her head high through every hour of waiting, reportedly went still and then soft, the way a parent does when they realize there are parts of their child's life they cannot manage or protect, only honor. It wasn't about career anymore, or headlines, or the neat lines of a public narrative. It was about this undeniable instinct to reach for the person who, no matter the noise outside, still anchors you inside. Doctors and nurses exchanged looks they probably didn't mean to share. They've seen many things, a lot of drama passes through quiet rooms, but even they paused at the intensity with which Alina focused on one name, one person, as if her recovery started and ended with knowing he was there. At that point, she was still attached to the monitors, still in that in-between where the mind comes back in pieces. She couldn't move freely. She couldn't perform strength. But she was certain. She wanted Alp told. She wanted to see him. It didn't matter if the past months had been cool in public, if they ducked cameras or stepped apart at events. It didn't matter that the narrative had turned toward endings. In that raw and unguarded moment, priority became truth, and truth sounded like a name she trusted. For all the polished public restraint, this was the part that couldn't be rehearsed or hidden. By the time the story reached the media, it spread like perfume in a crowded hallway. Everyone caught the same note and turned to find the source. Entertainment shows dissected the timing, fan pages pulled up past interviews, and timelines blazed with old clips suddenly carrying new weight. Is this a reconciliation? Was it ever truly over? Did they ever let go? From Spain and Italy to Brazil, Mexico, and Chile, fans posted translations and timestamps, shared theories and heartbeats. It didn't feel like gossip anymore, it felt like a moment people wanted to believe in. A single, fragile thread of sincerity in a world that too often feels scripted. Then came the detail that shifted everything. Sources say Alp heard the news in the middle of rehearsal. He was working through notes, pushing through a long day, that focus he's known for radiating in small gestures and quiet concentration. And then someone stepped in, whispered to him, and the room changed. He didn't finish the coffee set on a music stand. He didn't finish the blocking. Witnesses describe a flash of shock across his face, then something tighter, older, and urgency laced with guilt, with tenderness, with the memory of laugh lines and unplanned evenings. Without posturing, without a phone raised for optics, he left. Just left. No entourage, no statement, no curated denial. That exit said what press releases never can. When Alp reached the clinic, everything had already shifted into a delicate kind of lockdown. Staff understood the sensitivity of what was happening. Security tightened around doors, the sort of quiet choreography that ensures privacy without needing to bark orders. No photos emerged. No nurses snapped a quick shot. No gossip blog got a grainy frame. The meeting that followed is something fans will have to imagine, only that imagining doesn't need to be loud. If you've ever watched two people who've tried to be brave without each other and then ran out of brave, you know the silent choreography of it. There's a stillness that looks like relief, a small exhale that sounds like forgiveness, and a kind of eye contact that asks 1,000 questions without demanding a single answer right away. What is clear from those close to the situation is that Alina's post-op priority was as precise as a compass needle. She wanted to see Alp. She wanted him to know. She wanted to be sure the person who had mattered still mattered, and that he understood that nothing out there, neither the cool public distance nor the rehearsed avoidance, ever fully erased what had been written on the inside. In that single request, perceptions began to tilt. It wasn't about playing to an audience anymore. It was about the courage it takes to need someone openly when your life is measured in headlines. And people felt it. The noise softened. Even critics stopped sounding so sure of themselves. Industry chatter grew louder as the day went on. Some wondered if this was the start of a carefully timed comeback, the kind of narrative arc that publicists whisper about in meeting rooms with dim lamps and expensive water. Others countered that nothing about this felt choreographed. There were no perfectly angled paparazzi shots, no hallway poses, no winking captions. What had happened wasn't a campaign. It was a slip of the heart into the public light. That's why it worked. That's why it made people pause their scrolling and breathe. We heard, too, about Alina's quiet months before the surgery. She'd put on a brave face through rehearsals and night shoots, holding herself together when the pain became something sharp and unfriendly. She didn't want it to spill into the lives of those she worked with, didn't want it to become a storyline. She tried to hold her body and her privacy steady at the same time, which is a kind of heroism that rarely gets noticed because it doesn't look dramatic. On the morning of the operation, surrounded by the few who know how to sit with silence, she allowed herself to be small for a moment, to let others carry the weight. Perhaps that is why, when she woke, she reached for the person who, in some corner of her spirit, had been carrying her all along. Alp's reaction has its own gravity. People who know him describe him as disciplined, thoughtful, protective of what matters. That day, he looked like a man who had run out of ways to pretend. Whatever had been said in recent months about distance, about focus, about being better apart than entangled, suddenly seemed like set dressing, something necessary for appearances but powerless in the face of something that felt truer. He didn't play to the room. He didn't perform charisma. He moved with the urgency of someone for whom the clock had stopped and then started again only long enough to say, "Go." The meeting itself remained sealed by courtesy and discretion. What trickled out later were only tones and impressions. No one is willing to speak in detail, perhaps because some moments deserve to live outside the internet. But the idea that their conversation was tender and unguarded feels right. There is a specific hush that happens when two people stop arguing with fate and let themselves be honest. Maybe there were tears. Maybe there were apologies shaped like hands finding each other again. Maybe there was only silence, and the kind of smile that's half joy, half relief. Whatever the case, those who protect them made sure that moments stayed intact, untouched by flashbulbs. And so the aftershocks continue. Television panels debate and replay. Fans, from Europe to Latin America, add their own languages to the chorus, crafting edits and theories, offering prayers and poems. Everyone becomes a little bit of a romantic when faced with a moment that refuses to be cynical. The conversation around Alina and Alp has been reignited, not as a scandal, but as a reminder. Somewhere behind all the manufactured stories and crisis emails, there are still human bonds that bend without breaking. There is still the choice to show up when it counts. There is still the risk, always the risk, of loving someone out loud. If you've stayed with me this far, you know this isn't just about a leaked detail or a trending clip. It's about the way a single whisper can change the temperature of a room, the way a name can carry an entire history, and the way two people, under a mountain of expectation, still find their way back to the simplest truth. Alina woke up and asked for Alp. Alp heard, and he went. Everything else is commentary. For more on this unfolding story, and for the moments the cameras miss, make sure you've liked this video and subscribed to Whispers of Turkish Stars. Until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep listening for the whispers that tell the truest stories.